Good evening, everyone, and thank you for your resistance. Saturday at 6 and 10 at night. And my name is Taiguara Alencar. I'm from GIZ in Brazil, and I'm the host of this session that we will discuss an experience in Brazil regarding the implementation of the forest code and low carbon agriculture techniques. And we really will work in a participative way. So half of the time will be some presentations in two videos, and the second half of the time will be a work group, okay? So it's important to say this, we are the host, but this is not a GIZ initiative. All that we will present here is coordinated in close cooperation with the Brazilian Forest Service and the National Rural Training Service of Brazil. This is a participative initiative and project that we are starting to implement in our country. So, I invite you to a journey to the Brazilian Savannah and to present some details and to tell this story. I invite to the stage here Janaína Rocha from the Brazilian Forest Service. I invite also Janei Rezende from the National Rural Training Service of Brazil. I invite Francisco Chagas, that is a leader of the Afro-descendant social movement of Brazil. And the last one, I invite Mr. Klaus, that is a rural producer and a farm in the state of Minas Gerais, also in Brazil. Okay? And to start, I invite the Janaína for his presentation, if you can be here. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Taiguara.
Control the time.
Ok. Ok. Vai ter... Yeah.
Well, we would like to present. I would like to present together with my colleague Janei. We would like to present our initiative. Well, ladies and gentlemen, are we all set? No? And we have already reached 6. Now, on the lower part, on the right-hand side, you can see that we also managed to have more cycles, 2 yields per year, and this obviously also leads to an increase in productivity. Here you can see where the farmers are located that are participating in our project. So it covers the whole Cerrado area. 2 states do not participate. It's 7 states and the federal district. They're all covered by our project, and there you can see that it's very evenly distributed. We also have a monitoring system. All these farmers receive extension services, 1,900 in total. And here you can see another map of Brazil where you can see the technical reference units, because we want to have reference units, technical reference units for our farmers. Even those farmers who are not yet part of the network can learn more about the technologies that are used, so then they can follow up with their own initiatives in order to implement these techniques at their farms. Here you can see 4 different maps. This is actually very interesting that we can measure with our system. So first of all, image number 1, we look at the perimeter of the property. Then in the second image, we look at the useful area, so the land that can be used for agricultural production. On the third image, we can see where the farmer really introduced the technology. And then 4, we can see permanent preservation areas and the legal reserve. Now, in the context of our project, the farmers were incentivized. We helped them to build capacities. It took 1.5 to 2 years, during which they received extension services, and they had the opportunity to implement with their own resources several technologies and see the results of the introduction of those new technologies. Here you can see one image that we always show them. You can see on the right the degraded pasture. Because what we wanted to do, our biggest focus was the restoration of degraded pastures. And here you can see on the left, we have recovered pastures through technologies of low-carbon agriculture. Here you can see the results that can be achieved. On the right, how it was before the farmer started with our project, and on the left, you can see after 18 months how the plantations developed. Well, now I'll give the floor to my colleague, Janaína, and she will tell you more about the Brazilian Forest Code. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me just briefly introduce the Brazilian Forest Service. It is an institution under the Ministry of the Environment, and we follow 4 different lines of research and work: research in forest information, forest sustainable management concessions, forestry promotion and traditional peoples inclusion, rural environmental registry. So we strive to include those local indigenous peoples and involve them in our extension services and training opportunities. And as I mentioned lastly, the registry. We have a rural environmental registry, which, well, I will focus on later on in my presentation. So the Brazilian Forest Service tries to really use the best information available and make this information available to the public. So make it available digitally. Here you can see the systems that we work with. We work with apps in order to identify tropical timber, a national system on forest information. We have a national forest inventory, timber traceability, and we even have a project for the exploitation. Now, what does the Rural Environmental Registry do? It's a public electronic registry that shows all farms, all lands, whom they belong to, also rural settlements. All this is registered in the Rural Environmental Registry. And not just the perimeter, but also native vegetation, for example. There's a percentage given, and that varies from biome to biome. So all this information is made available from 20%, for example, in the Cerrado region to up to 10% in the Brazilian rainforest region that needs to be maintained. The native vegetation needs to be maintained in up to 80% of the land area. So only 20% can be used economically. So this is something that is unique to our Brazilian Forest Code, and there is a complete registry of it. Another information that is very important is the permanent reservation areas they are also established by the Brazilian Forest Code. So, for example, close to the rivers and on very steep hills, for example, these are areas of permanent preservation that are protected, and this is important for the management of our water resources, for example, and the Brazilian Forest Code makes sure that these areas are preserved. Now here you can see more than 5.5 million landholders were registered. This covers a total of 466 million hectares, which is quite impressive. Here you can see the information that is available online. You can access this website. You can look at this permanent reserves, the consolidated areas. You can look where agriculture is implemented. We also have a registry of the rivers. You can find all that on the website that you can access easily online. Half of our territory is already covered by this registry. Now, looking at the Cerrado Biome, here we have the different states. Brazil is divided into 26 states and the federal district, so 27 in total. And the Brazilian Cerrado, which contributes to 1/3, well, the agriculture contributes to 1/3 of our GDP, but it's also important to highlight that 80% of this 30% of the GDP rely on the Cerrado Biome. So this is a vital part of our economy. It's the Savannah region. So obviously this area of Brazil is very important for Brazilian agriculture as a whole and for our economic activities in general. Here you can see the different projects, the ABC project, the low-carbon agriculture that was just presented by my colleague. And here you can also see the registry project. Of course, this leveraged a lot of synergies. It's part of a portfolio that is managed by the World Bank, and this led to a third project, a cooperation between the World Bank and GIZ, and it's called FIP Paisagem. so the FIP landscape project. Now, we chose certain areas of our land, which you can see on this map. Oh, no, right, well, right here you can see the areas that were selected for the project. So this is about integrated landscape management in the Cerrado Biome project. You can see the highlighted areas, and we will both introduce improved agricultural practices and also register the land areas. We will recover permanent reservation areas and native vegetation and make sure that local communities, traditional communities, are also involved because they work with traditional seeds, for example. More than 60% of the areas under preservation in Brazil are managed by traditional peoples and indigenous tribes. So this means that they deal with those seeds and they depend on them for their livelihoods. This obviously also improves our environmental quality. Thank you. That was it.
Janaína and Janei, for respect the time. Before we go ahead and call the next two presenters that are people that are living, really living in the landscape, in the watersheds that Janaína showed in the map, we're going to present to you a video to you see what is the Brazilian Savannah, what is the Cerrado. Okay? Let's see the video, the first video.
Antônio, como é que você faz para fazer a vigília aqui de toda essa área?
A pé.
A pé?
A pé.
E tem muito fogo?
Tem. E fogo. Quando tem o fogo, aí o que acontece? Eu chamo os outros amigos para a gente vir apagar.
O projeto Cerrado Federal é uma iniciativa do Ministério do Meio Ambiente, com coordenação no Brasil do Banco Mundial e financiado pelo DEFRA. Inicialmente, a assistência técnica previa assistência no estado do Maranhão, por ser o estado com maior demanda, para 5.600 cadastros, para agricultores familiares. E se fez um arranjo diante desse projeto, que a gente saiu de 5.600 para agora, então, 8.100 beneficiários, de forma a contemplar também os territórios de povos e comunidades tradicionais.
Aí, o histórico da comunidade. O município, a região aqui é Matões, né? A gente colocou aqui também que existem relatos de queimadas ocasionadas por caçadores clandestinos, né? Que adentram a floresta para caçar e acabam deixando vestígios de fogueira feita no acampamento. Ou jogam bituca de cigarro no mato, fazendo com que o fogo se espalhe. Então, isso é um problema aqui da comunidade?
Nós quer zelar e os outros que não pertencem destrói.
Ele vai pelo inicialmente encontrávamos uma resistência dos agricultores familiares em realizar o cadastro. Eles sabiam da obrigatoriedade por lei, por fazer, né? Mas assim que encontrávamos o agricultor, esclarecíamos os benefícios que o cadastro ambiental rural pode trazer, como acesso ao crédito agrícola, possibilidade de adesão ao PRA, que ele pode recuperar a propriedade dele se ele tiver algum passivo ambiental, e tem um prazo de até 20 anos para isso.
O fogo, em proporções grandes, invadiu toda a área que a gente tinha de reserva.
E o senhor acha que para recuperar essa parte que foi queimado, o que o senhor pensa em fazer agora?
Agora é continuar preservando, plantar algumas mudas.
As iniciativas de campo para provimento dessa assistência técnica foram no estado do Maranhão. Teve iniciativas de difusão de informação qualificada a respeito do que é o cadastro ambiental rural e qual a importância dele. E, além dessa comunicação, tiveram atividades de prover assistência técnica para a inscrição, tanto de agricultores familiares como povos e comunidades tradicionais.
Nós estamos cercados do agronegócio em nossa volta. E o CAR traz o benefício para ajudar o homem do campo, como nós, que somos lavradores, que dependemos.
Muito obrigada. Eu venho representar o governo do Reino Unido para prestigiar a entrega do Cadastro Ambiental Rural para agricultores rurais, assim como povos e comunidades tradicionais dos 17 municípios do Maranhão.
No início, a gente tentou colocar um módulo e foi aperfeiçoando, com o apoio dos recursos internacionais, e efetivamente em alguns momentos a gente pensava que não ia conseguir ter essa força, chegar nessas populações, mas com o apoio do Banco Mundial e com o apoio do Reino Unido, especialmente desse projeto, a gente está realizando um excelente trabalho, estamos deixando a marca do CAR onde ele tem que estar.
Cada vez mais, o Serviço Florestal Brasileiro vai se colocar à disposição como um agente de transformação, como um agente de desenvolvimento, para que a gente possa estar espalhando um pouco pelo mundo essa iniciativa que deu tão certo no país. Para a gente é um grande orgulho.
Os povos e comunidades tradicionais, eles têm uma relação muito íntima com a floresta, no sentido de que eles valorizam cada coisa que vem lá de dentro.
O Brasil aqui, no Cerrado, é um Brasil que dá exemplo para todo o resto do mundo. As pessoas conseguem produzir seus alimentos sem agredir o Cerrado.
O pessoal do CAT estiveram aqui e olharam a nossa comunidade, viram nossos resquícios, o que a gente tem, e disseram que vocês são comunidade quilombola. Muitos já tinham chegado dizendo pra gente, a gente dizia que não. Mas quando eles chegaram aqui, viram as coisas que a gente tem, eles disseram que nós somos quilombola mesmo, é verdade. Então vocês fizeram um trabalho, o CAR fez um trabalho que nem sabem que fizeram.
Okay, and so to complement the video, we call to the stage Francisco Chagas. The floor is yours.
Muito obrigado.
Thank you very much. My name is Francisco das Chagas. I'm from the Piauí state in Brazil. I live in the Caatinga biome in Brazil. Now, the traditional communities in Brazil, they preserve the space where they live because their reference are their ancestors. What does that mean? Their ancestry is what's most important to them and what's guiding their actions. Now, the local communities have a very close relationship with the environment they live in. This goes way beyond planting and harvesting. It's something holy, if you will. Now, when Janaína spoke and when we saw in the video that the local communities produce in a very small area of land enough to survive, enough for their subsistence, and they produce organic products. It's all very natural. So one of the most interesting moments was when implementing this registry. The traditional communities, they first wanted to understand what this was all about. What is this registry and how can it help me? Why is it important for our local communities? Will this registry maybe benefit the local communities? Will it help us? And maybe make sure that they can protect the land they live in and that they depend on. So there were very important moments that we had discussions that we had with the Brazilian government to discuss details and issues, how to do it, who should be doing it. And for the local and traditional communities, this was and still is a very interesting moment. This registry program is a platform that helps to identify and to show to the world that the traditional communities are preserving the land where they live. They are worried about it, and they understand from the very beginning that they need to work in harmony with the environment and with the land. They need to protect the place where they live for the future generations in order to enable them to live in harmony with nature and the environment as well. So we have a very close relationship. There's the synthetic right and the organic right. Now, synthetic, that means to change everything that is organic. It changes our environment in a way that is prejudicial to us and to future generations. Now, what is organic is what we need to preserve in order to make sure that the place where we live remains livable for future generations. Now, when looking at the economic landscape, the local communities also felt that this registry platform was important to them because it allowed them to participate in the discussion. It allowed them to be a part of the discussion that then led to the implementation of a land registry program. When you're part of the debate, when you're part of this discussion, then you can make sure that the land as a whole will benefit from it, that all the Brazilian citizens benefit from it, because preserving our natural beauty and preserving our environment is good for everyone. And we rely on our ancestry. We refer to it. It is so important and so close to our hearts. It's about more than just agricultural production. I said it. It's a holy relationship that we have with the land, with the fruit that we plant, with the herbal and medicinal plants. They need to be protected. We need to preserve and maintain them. So, of course, we harvest the fruit from the tree, but we do not take the fruit away from the tree. We do not take the fish away from the water. Of course, we catch the fish and we harvest the fruit in order to maintain and guarantee our livelihood. But we're still all part of one thing that is a whole. So our traditional territory needs to be protected. And as the local communities, the indigenous communities, at the beginning they were, let's say, reluctant. They didn't understand what the registry was all about. But it is so important for them to be part of this, to be part of this process in order to make sure that we as a country become more sustainable. Traditional communities in Brazil can use this as a tool, and it is fundamental. It is really crucial. Our colleagues from the Brazilian Forest Service, they know about this. They know that we are an important part of this process, and that whenever they talk to local communities, they bring it up. It's very important for the government, for Brazil as a whole, to understand the communities, how they live sustainably, how they preserve the nature they live in. their ancestry, their heritage. It was important for Brazil as a country to learn about that, but it was also important for the local communities to understand that they can actually benefit from this registry. So the local communities, and Brazil is a country of continental dimensions, and sometimes, well, some of the communities live very far off. And then when, I don't know, maybe someone falls ill, or maybe they go through difficult moments, degradation all around them, they look at their sons and grandchildren, and sometimes we have to look at the elders of our communities because they can provide us with leadership. They can teach us so much. They have so much knowledge and information. But we also need to make sure that everyone understands the importance of this land registry. It's very important for Brazil, and it has been very important for our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Chagas, for your living experience of all this. But in our FLR approach, we have in each landscape of Brazil, we have a lot of type of stakeholders and type of production, type of segments, and different people, traditional people, big farmers, cattle raising, soybean, a lot of things, a lot of people. So to see another experience, we will see another video.
Antes do ABC Cerrado chegar aqui na região, principalmente na propriedade que está sendo assistida aqui, a gente tinha um grande problema que é a compra de alimento. A gente precisava fazer a compra de silagem para suprir a alimentação do rebanho no período da seca, e por um custo muito alto. Com a ABC a gente está mudando essa realidade aos poucos. A gente está fazendo um consórcio da forrageira com alguma cultura anual, que no caso aqui é o sorgo, está bem adaptado à região para o período de escassez e até veranico. E nós estamos produzindo um alimento com qualidade, que onde a gente estava comprando, agora a gente está autossuficiente. E agora está sendo, para a gente aqui na propriedade, uma nova fonte de renda que a gente está vendendo o excedente e ficando com as áreas formadas com a forrageira.
Eu sempre falo, eu já tinha feito vários cursos do Senar, mas eu não acreditava que a gente era capaz de chegar onde nós chegamos.
A participação dos cursos no Senar foi muito bom para mim. Eu não sabia quase nada aqui, né? Hoje eu já sei, trabalho com reta escavadeira, tudo através do ABC Cerrado, trabalho com trator e eu trabalho para nós mesmos, consigo fazer tudo e nas horas de folga eu trabalho para os outros, tem uma renda, né? Tem uma renda maior.
A gente não tinha aqui essas parcerias na nossa região, a gente batalhava sozinho, a gente era esquecido. E hoje, através do Senar, conseguimos unir Emater, unir sindicato, unir prefeitura, que hoje que traz os equipamentos para a gente poder trabalhar quando falta na comunidade. A prefeitura está sempre disposta a nos apoiar. Isso cresce muito para a gente e deixa a gente com mais facilidade de trabalhar, né?
Tipicamente, a região aqui do norte de Minas tem uma grande dificuldade com a água, né? Mas como a gente tem esse problema há vários anos, a gente não aceitou mais que a partir que a gente torna propriedade, que esse seja um grande problema.
O Senar trouxe, né, para o município de Brasil de Minas essa tecnologia, né, que não é uma tecnologia tão recente, mas que era pouco aplicada no município. A gente desenvolveu na propriedade dele as curvas de nível, a retenção de enxurradas com bacias de captação, e a gente elevou isso para algo maior, né? Foi criado aí pelo CISEMA e o IGAN aí, o Prêmio Boas Práticas Salve o Rio São Francisco, concorreu aí com todos os municípios da bacia do Rio São Francisco. A gente conseguiu pegar terceiro lugar aí desse prêmio.
O projeto ABC do Cerrado nos ajudou muito na qualidade do leite. A gente trabalha com o queijo e com o requeijão. Cada dia que vem está melhorando mais, porque antes a gente produzia um queijo, hoje nós chegamos em torno de 10 queijos por dia. Cada vez a gente quer melhorar mais.
E hoje estamos aí tirando nosso sustento aqui da propriedade. Espero que cada dia que passa vão crescer mais com essa parceria. Espero que vai vir mais cursos, melhor do que esse para nós ainda.
So, to complement the video, I call Klaus Vieira to explain the living experience as well. The floor is yours.
My name is Klaus Vieira. I'm a farmer. I'm the son and grandson of farmers in Minas Gerais, and we live in the northern part of the state Minas Gerais. So right at where the biome region of the Cerrado meets the biome region of the Caatinga. So it's a semi-arid region of Minas Gerais. I work with cattle for meat production, and the farmer you just saw in this video, he's also a small farmer. He produces milk, and I produce meat with the cattle that I have. Now, this semi-arid region where we are located, well, over the course of the last years, we were negatively affected by the degradation of pastures. So this ABC Cerrado program was actually taking care of a big necessity that we had, because they offered extension services and helped us to introduce new technologies in order to recover and restore degraded pastures. In doing so, we were able to increase productivity, improve our yield, without having to use new land and new areas. No deforestation was required. We didn't have to explore new areas in order to increase our productivity. We were able to stay within the area that we had cultivated previously. So all these measures that we implemented really help farmers who live on their land to have an income with it. And obviously, they need to be sustainable. They need to generate an income in order to make sure that what they do is sustainable. For example, to produce meat, produce dairy, without using new lands, without felling any more trees. This is the big benefit of this program. Increase yield on the same area. So obviously, sometimes local farmers have difficulties to see that they can benefit from a program such as the one that was introduced here recently. In my case, for example, at the beginning, I didn't have the financial means, because sometimes you think, well, this new technology would be great, but I can't afford them. Now, this program helped us solve these issues, because sometimes the technologies that were introduced do not even require financial investments. Sometimes you don't have to invest a lot of money. For example, you can see this right here. This is an example of what we did. You integrated crop livestock forest systems. So now we cultivate sorghum, which is a great product, and this is good for the pastures. And why do I say that? Because we plant sorghum right here, which is good for the adjacent areas as well. Here you can see a degraded area that was improved over time. And here you can see another example. This is a bigger area where we have an even higher productivity, and this allows the farmers to grow. Now, the year after you plant sorghum, you have better pasture. you can use preservation techniques in order to make sure that you increase your productivity and you don't have to use new land. We need to respect, we need to preserve the biome, we need to respect and preserve the environment and the nature that we depend on. The big river, Rio San Francisco, for example, needs to be preserved, it needs to be protected in order to make sure that we are sustainable in our business. We have sustainable agriculture, and agriculture can only be sustainable for consumers if it's also sustainable for the farmers. And agriculture is the backbone of the Brazilian economy. So we need to make sure that farmers can sustain their families, they can gain a livelihood, and I think that these factors all contribute to the success of this program in our region. This program really improved productivity, improved the return we get from our land, and we're very happy with everything we learned in the context of this project. And I would also like to thank the World Bank for the invitation. It was really great to come here to share my personal experience from Minas Gerais. Thank you.
Thank you, Klaus. So, thank you for all presentations. I hope that you have appreciated them. But now we want to listen to you also, because it's important to learn from all these countries represented here. And we will work in groups right now. It's a Saturday night work, 7 o'clock. But we will discuss 5 aspects that we want to learn from your experience. The 5 aspects are concept, governance, monitoring, the forest land restoration and climate change policy, and the upscaling aspects. So I will distribute some questions, and I invite the presenters to mix with the audience. So, and you have like 25 minutes to discuss in groups some key questions that we have prepared. Okay? just one announcement. If you have questions or doubts, you can ask for the participants. They will mix in the groups, okay?
tradução, né? Sempre só pra curtir, né? Rapaz, Nayara, ô Taiguara, eu esqueci, cara. Acabei esquecendo de compartilhar a questão. O meu pai é a sexta geração, quinta geração, eu sou a quinta geração. Ele tem 60 hectares de terra. Ele usa desses 60, 20, 15 só para plantar. E ele tem um pomar de IP, porque todo ano ele tira 2 IP, mas todo ano ele planta 22 IP. É muito IP, cara. Tem um lado assim, eu fico muito lindo, cara. Eu vou fazer a foto um dia e mandar pra você.
Vai lá visitar.
A galera tá super. Aqui? Tem muita gente, né? Não deixa eu só pra brincar aqui. Qual que é o nome da outra cidade que a gente vai lá na Katowice? Como é que se
More 5 minutes, okay? 5 minutes. Second mic. Okay. Okay, folks. Finish? Finish? Yes? Do you want? Can't stay. Volunteer to present in 1 minute. Choose one to present in 1 minute, the final remark. Finish? Group 4? Choose one to present, okay? 1 minute, 1 minute. Finish? 5? Okay. Choose one to present in 1 minute. The main message. Okay, people.
Tá carregando. Rapidinho.
Everybody, please, 1 minute of your attention. Okay, group 5, group 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, in 1 minute, please, we want to listen to you the main remark, the main message to us. Okay? Let's start with group 1.
Okay, so our question...
Stand up, please, stand up. Stand up.
Okay, so our question was, how do you define a landscape in your country or region, and what does this definition imply for your FLR approach? And to be totally sincere, we ended up talking about other subjects as well. So we represent Brazil and Bolivia, and when we talked about what a landscape is, we talked about a region which offers environmental services, but also it's the idea of integrating the human aspects with environmental aspects, so social, environmental, and cultural as well. And also it can pertain different types of land usage, so it can be forests, water, agriculture, and have some economic aspects to it as well. So basically it's, really general. And in terms of how the definition then applies for your FLR approach, we thought that was maybe in terms of how our government, then how would that apply? And we weren't really sure how to reply that actually. But I guess seeing as the landscape definition is so broad, I guess that the FLR approach can also be quite broad. And I guess that's a kind of a key message as well.
Okay, thank you so much, Group 1. Applause. And let's go to Group 2 about the governance, the main message, please.
Okay, so the related questions here are, what are the governance challenges as far as landscape restoration, and how do you deal with stakeholder interests and possible conflicts? And I guess we thought one of the key challenges was to ensure sustainability, such as environmental sustainability and economic and social sustainability. And in terms of stakeholders, you can imagine you could have environmentalist groups with one point of view, let's say, and ranchers with another point of view. So both from a governance standpoint and with the idea of reducing conflicts between stakeholders, it would be good to measure a baseline and measure progress against or change from that baseline, and hopefully show that your activity was improving things on both economic and environmental dimensions.
Okay, thank you so much, Group 2. Applause. And let's go to Group 3 about monitoring.
Okay, so our first finding in our group was that we're all very tired. We had colleagues from Canada, Germany, the States, and from Japan. And our issue was monitoring, so different experiences with that. And so the issue, the points we found out is that, first of all, definitions, again, are important to see what we are talking about, to have comparability between countries and regions, for example, define degradation or something like important like that. Then another aspect that we found is important is participation and monitoring, to find out what the people actually in that landscape are interested in terms of variables or other issues to be included in monitoring. And finally, also in the same direction, I mean, there's no landscape restoration without the socio-economic issues. People live there, and that was pretty clear from the presentation also. We have to include socio-economic issues also in this monitoring efforts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Applause. Anselm is our program director of Rainforest Program in GIZ Brazil. Thank you. And my boss.
So thank you again.
Thank you again. So let's go to group 4 about FLR and climate change policy.
Yeah, we changed questions actually because our challenge was that we are all from Germany, working in other countries, and we didn't know too much about Germany on this topic. So at least we changed the question again to concept, and we're thinking about what is a landscape in Germany, how it is defined, and what are we able to say about that. So yeah, we would just like to state that landscape planning per se is a whole career in Germany, and people finishing a university degree in this career work in districts, in regional governments, and have a lot of different specializations. So land types or land use types in Germany are defined very strictly, and generally the regulation is also enforced. There's, for example, no illegal deforestation. But of course, we also we have 31% of forests in Germany, and they are stable. They should not increase or decrease. So there's no FLR concept in Germany, as far as we know, implemented in order to increase any of these tree areas. But 300 years ago, we only had 7% of forests in Germany, and then followed by a period of reforestation with monocultures, which then got us into a lot of other problems, which we would say mainly around the 80s started this change towards more diverse forests again, like this transformation of the monocultures to other forests, which is still occupying us today in the forestry sector. So this is some elements we could contribute from Germany, from our knowledge, but we found out that about FLR per se in Germany, we don't know too much.
Thank you, Lisa. Applause. And finally, we go. You are group 4 also. Let's go. Stand up, please. Stand up.
Thank you. And to be honest, we really didn't discuss it very much. I think partly because we have some Brazilians here, and I'm Dutch, and we can be quite quick about what we do in the Netherlands. We don't do forest landscape restoration. We did that 100 years ago after the First World War as a kind of work project to give people something to do, which is why we now have 10% forest instead of 5% forest. But I think that's it for the Netherlands. What we do is we focus a lot on Brazil and Indonesia and see how consumption in Europe of forest, of soy, of beef contributes to deforestation. And I think that's more the view we take in the Netherlands. Whether that's a bit arrogant or not, I don't know, but that's how it is.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Applause. And finally, group 5, about upscaling.
Okay, here we had experiences from, I guess, Peru, Mozambique, Germany, and Switzerland. We had 2 major discussions about landscape restoration experiences, one coming from Peru, where the main emphasis has been on planting trees and paying for ecosystem services, but where it's not really clear if there is other benefits derived or value to the smallholders. So it's not clear if this will be sustained over time. And we also talked about Switzerland, where there was an experience a while ago, I don't know how long ago, but where they took the provenance of the seedlings came from northern Germany, and they ended up not being very good for the place where they were planted in Switzerland, and it didn't work out in the end. So I guess the main message, two messages, some technical aspects are important. Pilots, don't upscale too fast if your pilot is not really tested. Yeah. And I think that's more or less it, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, thank you all. I think we could discuss much more, and several countries represented here, a lot of experience. We are at the limit of time. I don't know if someone would like to a final remark, if you want, the participants, or not. If you are satisfied, without crucial questions, without existential questions, so, okay? So, one existential question.
What you want?
Então eu vou fazer em português assim.
Well, I would like to speak Portuguese. I am Brazilian. I just finalized my doctoral degree in the Netherlands, and I interviewed Janaína as part of my doctoral thesis. Now, the impression that I got when I look at Brazil from abroad, that it seems that everything in Brazil is all right, but we know that it is not. Now, maybe, Janaína, you could tell us a little bit more about the Brazilian Forest Code and what the objective of the land registry is. I think I'll leave it at that, otherwise it will just get too long. Well, the land registry program is a tool, a registry that was implemented at the national level in 2012. Everything who needs translation has their headsets on, right? Well, so anyways, it's the result of public policies at the state level in many cases, and it was created in order to combat deforestation. So it was in 2014 when, well, as I said, we have already registered 5 million rural properties and settlements, and we've come to understand, I think it is just what group number 3 also said, we've come to understand that monitoring, the control of monitoring, how you manage monitoring, how you really deal with the forests, how you combat deforestation, deals actually with a lot of social questions. It's about land use, it's about generating income. It's not really about verification, about control. It's more of a social instrument, if you will. So what do we have this rural environmental registry for? I would say it's a very powerful tool in order to plan public policies for rural communities and forests. Well, if I understand correctly, the Rural Environmental Registry actually wanted to generate a database, environmental data, in order to sell all this information to, well, if you will, to compensate the rural producers. Some of them do not have, for example, their land in the Cerrado region, and then they could set it off with another land areas. It's like a certification program, a credit program, isn't it? No. I think I know what you're getting at. This tool for this compensation tool, this is only for rural communities. And, well, let me just give you some background. It's about regulating land use. And we had those legal reserves where people need to protect a certain percentage of their land. For example, 20% of the land of the farmer needs to maintain native vegetation. Now, if you don't reach the 20%, then you have to compensate for that. So the forest code said that if you don't reach the 20% in your territory by 2008, for those areas, they could have a second strip of land where they dedicate 30%. Like here you need 20%, but you only have 10, but now you have this other area of land where you need to have 20, but you have 30, so you can set it off. So this would be direct compensation. I think this is what the question was about. Another innovation was the quotas for environmental reservation and preservation. So this payment for environmental services, for example, those who actually preserve more than the required percentage on their land, they can trade this on the stock exchange in order to sell it to other farmers who are not protecting the required percentage of land. All right, I think we could just
of the Brazilian Forest Code, but unfortunately we need to finish. So to finish, I have some words, final words, just to reflect a little. See, look, and see the horizon. Look ahead and see the landscape. Look, please, and see our home. We're not the same. My crop is not so prosper like yours. My house is not so fancy. My car is not so fast. Even my skin is not the same, but still we live together. We are totally different, almost the opposite. Your land is vast and mine is tiny, but still we live together. Because the air is just one air. The water is just one water. So, may the horizon also be just one, yours and mine. May I can dream your dream with the same meaning, the same feeling, the same dream. So, think and remember, always remember that we live in the same home, that we live in the same landscape. Thank you so much.